They slammed me to the pavement over a bottle of soda I hadn't even opened. Right outside a store I'd been to a dozen times. The glass cracked against the concrete, and my dignity shattered with it. People passed by like it was just another Tuesday in Oakland. But 10 minutes later, the mayor of the city was standing beside me, holding up a letter that could have changed everything. If anyone had bothered to ask who I was before they decided what I was. I was born in Oakland, California, on the second floor of a crumbling apartment building off San Pablo Avenue, right across the street from a liquor store with bulletproof glass and faded neon signs that buzzed louder than they glowed. My mom named me Damian Rios after her father, a man I never met, but was told had the kind of hands that could build anything, and a silence that could crush everything else. My mom, Maria, raised me on double shifts and old dreams. She was a housekeeper by day, janitor by night, and a world class warrior every hour in between. We didn't have much, but we had enough. Enough to keep the lights on most months, enough to laugh when the heater broke in December, enough to pretend that things would be better someday. That someday came for me in the form of a thick envelope from Stanford University. Full ride. Pre-law track. When I opened it in our kitchen, our table wobbly from a broken leg and covered in two bills we hadn't paid yet. I swear I heard my mom's heart stop before she let out a scream that echoed down the hallway. It wasn't just a scholarship. It was a ticket. Out. Up. Forward. Every step I took after that moment felt lighter. Like I was already halfway gone from the life I'd been born into. That morning, I left the apartment with that letter folded in my back pocket, like some kind of shield. I was going to surprise my mom with a bottle of her favorite soda, cherry vanilla, the glass kind with the vintage label. It was our thing. She used to save up and get one for me on the last day of school every year. And now, I wanted to return the favor. The sun was already high, and the streets buzzed with life the way Oakland always does. Buses groaning to a stop, corner vendors yelling prices, the air full of heat and history. I took the long road to the store on 12th and Broadway, the same one I passed every day on the way to school. It wasn't anything fancy, just a family-owned corner market with barred windows and a dusty display of snacks nobody bought anymore. The kind of place where the cashier knew your name, or at least should have. As I walked in, the bell above the door jingled like it always did. But something felt off. The moment I stepped across the threshold, the air shifted. It wasn't cold exactly, just watchful. I caught the clerk's eyes. Thin guy, maybe late 40s, with sweat under his collar and suspicion written all over his face. He didn't greet me, didn't nod, just stared, one hand hovering near the counter. I smiled, trying to disarm the moment. I even waved a little like a fool. No response. I told myself I was imagining things, that maybe he was having a bad day, or maybe he didn't recognize me in the Stanford hoodie I'd thrown on that morning. I made my way toward the back fridge, passing a mother and her two kids debating over chips. The little one bumped into me and apologized with wide eyes. I smiled, said it was all good. The cherry soda sat on the second shelf, right where it always did. I opened the fridge, grabbed the bottle, and turned toward the register. That's when I saw the phone in the clerk's hand. He wasn't dialing. He was watching me. He whispered something into the receiver, eyes flicking between me and the counter. I paused, bottle in hand, confusion stirring in my chest. I thought maybe he was on the phone with a vendor, maybe talking about inventory, maybe. Then I heard it. Yeah, he just walked in. Blackmail, hoodie. Looks like he's trying to steal something. My mouth went dry. My grip on the soda tightened, and suddenly, the cool bottle burned in my palm. I looked around, hoping I was wrong, hoping there was someone else he could be talking about. But there was no one, just me. I walked slowly to the counter, my heart pounding in my ears. I placed the bottle down gently, like it might explode. I was going to pay, I said. The clerk didn't answer. He didn't even look at me. Just kept talking, describing me like I was a threat, like I was already guilty. I reached for my wallet, pulled out my ID, my school badge, even the folded scholarship letter, like proof of innocence could be held in paper and plastic. See this? I said, trying to stay calm. I got into Stanford. I'm buying a soda for my mom. Still nothing. No eye contact, no humanity. I wasn't a person to him. I was a problem. I turned, thinking I should just walk out, forget the soda, forget the moment. But the bell above the door jingled again, this time with urgency. Two police officers stepped inside. One male, one female. Guns at their hips, tension in their eyes. My body froze. My fingers spread instinctively, like I was reaching for safety that didn't exist. The clerk pointed. That's him, he said. He hasn't paid. Tried to walk out. I blinked. I didn't, I said. I haven't left. I just got here. The officer raised his hand. Step back. I did. Another step. The bottle slipped off the counter, shattered on the floor, and so did everything else. The soda fizzed against the tile floor, red bubbles spreading like blood. The glass shards sparkled under the overhead lights, tiny knives beneath my sneakers. The sound of the bottle breaking was sharp, final, like a gunshot in the silence. Everyone turned. The mother with the two kids pulled them behind her, like I was a danger to be shielded from. The female officer took a step forward, her hand hovering near her weapon. The male officer's eyes didn't leave mine. I held my hands out, palms facing up, fingers wide. I didn't do anything, I said, my voice trembling despite my effort to keep it steady. They didn't ask my name. They didn't ask what happened. Instead, the male officer pointed to my backpack. Put it down slowly. I hesitated, not out of defiance, but fear. That one command, put it down, carried weight. There are entire stories that end when a black teen reaches for a bag. But I followed his instructions. I bent down slowly, placed it on the ground, and stepped away. Kick it toward me, he said. I did. He picked it up, unzipped it, and dumped everything onto the floor. Out spilled a copy of The Souls of Black Folk, a spiral notebook filled with notes from my AP government class, a pencil case, a crumpled granola bar, and, folded carefully into thirds, the letter from Stanford. He picked it up, unfolded it, read a few lines, then scoffed and dropped it onto the floor like it meant nothing. I watched it fall like it was my future, fluttering out of reach. You think you're special? The clerk spat. Coming in here waving papers around like that means something? I turned to him, rage bubbling in my throat. I didn't wave anything. You accused me before I even spoke. You people always have excuses. There it was again. You people. Not students, not customers, not even kids. Just you people. The female officer walked behind me and cuffed my wrists. The metal bit into my skin, cold and final. This is a misunderstanding, I said, louder now, struggling to keep panic from turning into a shout. Check the cameras. I didn't steal anything. I was still in the store. Quiet, she said. You have the right to remain silent. I looked around the store, at the other customers, at the people peering in from the sidewalk. Their eyes said it all. Another black kid caught, another case closed. But I wasn't a case. I was a kid trying to buy soda for his mom. They led me outside. The cuffs clicked tighter with every step. My backpack and books were left behind, scattered across the store floor like debris from a crash no one cared to clean up. The sidewalk burned under my sneakers. People stopped and stared, phones out. Some recording, some just watching. The male officer pushed me against the squad car and began patting me down. The cuffs pressed against the bone of my wrists. What are you even looking for? I asked. Anything you shouldn't have. I don't have anything. I didn't steal. I didn't even leave the store. Then why'd he call us? Because I'm black. He froze, just for a second. Then he leaned in, close enough that I could smell the bitter coffee on his breath. Don't play the race card, he said. It won't help you. I laughed, short and humorless. It's not a card, it's my reality. He stepped back. I looked down the street, heart racing, sweat slicking my neck. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably my mom wondering why I was late. I couldn't answer. My hands were behind my back, my dignity in shambles. That's when I heard it, the voice I hadn't expected. What's going on here? The tone was calm but commanding. Like someone used to being heard. I turned my head and saw a tall black man in a sharp grey suit, his phone pressed to his ear, brows furrowed as he surveyed the scene. Behind him, A group of aides scrambled to keep up. Cameras clicked. Microphones appeared like magic from behind car doors and purses. One of the reporters gasped, "That's Councilman Trenton. Isn't he with the mayor today?" I didn't know the name. I didn't care. All I knew was that someone with a suit and a camera might be my only shot at being seen, not just watched but seen. The councilman's eyes landed on me, and something shifted in his expression. He ended his call, approached the officers, and said it again. Louder this time. "What is going on here?" The officer straightened. The cuffs didn't come off. "He was suspected of shoplifting," the female officer said. The councilman looked at me. "Is that true?" "No," I said, my voice cracking. "Did you take anything?" I shook my head. "Did you leave the store?" I didn't even make it to the register. The councilman turned to the clerk, who was now standing outside, arms crossed, trying to hold onto the moral high ground like it was a lifeline. "He had something in his hand," he said. "He dropped it when the police came." The councilman raised a brow. "Something like what?" "A soda." "A soda?" "Yes." "A sealed soda?" "Yes." "A soda you sell for, what, $2? The clerk hesitated. "It's not about the price, it's the principle." "Ah," the councilman said, nodding. "The principle of calling the cops on a student with a Stanford letter in his bag who never left the store." The clerk flushed. "I didn't know he was a student." "You didn't ask?" The councilman pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and showed the officer something. I couldn't see it, but I heard the officer exhale sharply. "Release him," the councilman said. The female officer hesitated. The councilman stared her down. "Now." The cuffs came off. My wrists burned. Red rings where the metal had kissed too hard. I rubbed them, blinking in the sunlight, feeling more exposed than ever. My arms hung at my sides like they no longer belonged to me. "I'm sorry this happened," the councilman said, turning to me. I nodded. Words caught in my throat. But it wasn't over, because that's when I heard another voice. One that silenced even the city traffic. It came from a sleek black SUV that had just pulled up. The door opened. Heels clicked on pavement. A woman stepped out, tall, commanding, elegant, in a navy blue suit that looked like it cost more than our rent. The crowd murmured. Phones rose. Whispers spread like fire. "Mayor Angelica Warren, the first black woman to lead Oakland. And she was walking toward me. She moved with the kind of grace that didn't ask for space. It took it." The crowd parted without being told. Her presence was a tidal wave in a quiet harbor, deliberate and dignified. Her eyes locked on mine for only a moment. But it was enough to see she had already pieced together everything. Her gaze was heavy with understanding, but not pity. That mattered. Mayor Angelica Warren didn't speak at first. She just stood there in silence, scanning the scene. Broken glass on the pavement. My wrist red and raw. My backpack left wide open on the sidewalk like a dissected body. She looked at the clerk, then the officers, and then, without turning her head, she said to the female officer, "I trust you've documented the entire encounter?" The officer stiffened. "We were in the process of resolving." "You've detained a minor?" the mayor interrupted. "On a suspicion unsupported by video, eyewitness testimony, or stolen goods." "Resolving is the wrong word." There was a flicker of panic on the officer's face. "We responded to a 911 call from the store owner. What he stated is irrelevant if it isn't corroborated." Mayor Warren snapped, her voice calm but sharp enough to slice marble. "And even if he believed what he saw, your response didn't need to escalate into handcuffing a student over a soda bottle. A student, by the way, with a full scholarship to Stanford, which I imagine you saw when you ransacked his bag." My heart thudded at her words. I hadn't told anyone about Stanford, not out loud, not to anyone who mattered, until now. "How do you know?" I started, but she held up a single finger, not to hush me, but to ask for my patience. She turned to the clerk. "I assume you have security cameras?" she said. The man shifted, suddenly more nervous than indignant. "Yes, but I want the footage pulled immediately. City attorneys will be reviewing it." The councilman beside her added, "And while you're at it, be prepared for a formal inquiry. Civil rights violations, discrimination, racial profiling. There's more than one set of eyes on this corner now." The clerk turned red, then pale. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he stammered. "I was just being careful." You know how things go sometimes. Young people. No! Mayor Warren cut in. Say it. He blinked. Say what you really meant. Don't hide it behind young people. You called the police because he's black, because he wore a hoodie, because that fit into a story you made up in your head before he said a single word. The clerk looked away. The mayor exhaled deeply, then faced me again. Damian Rios, right? She asked. I nodded, barely able to find my voice. Yes, ma'am. She gave a single solemn nod. I read your application essay. I froze. My brain struggled to connect the dots. My essay. The one about growing up in Oakland, about my mom's 3 jobs, and the way I used to help her study for her GED while I was in middle school. How? I asked. She smiled faintly. I was on the review committee for the Mayor's Scholars Program. That essay made me cry in my office. There was silence then. Real heavy silence. The crowd had grown. People recording, whispering, nudging each other. Some in disbelief, some wide-eyed with recognition. Me standing there, shirt damp with sweat, wrists marked with police steel, shoes sticky from soda. While the mayor of my city looked me in the eye and said she cried because of something I wrote. You were never supposed to be treated like this, she said. But it keeps happening, again and again, and we keep seeing it, filming it, sharing it, hoping someone in power will say enough. She stepped closer, now just a few feet from me. Well, I'm saying it. The officers looked unsure of what to do next. Stand at ease or stand down. The female officer looked uncomfortable. The male officer kept glancing at his partner, like they might disappear if they stayed still long enough. The mayor reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a card. This is my office number. Tomorrow morning you will come in and meet with my team. We're going to discuss what restitution looks like. Not just for you, but for every kid who's ever had this happen and didn't have a camera or a crowd to back them up. I took the card with both hands like it was sacred. And one more thing, she said, voice lowering. She turned back to the store clerk. This establishment is now under formal review. Your business license will be evaluated based on conduct standards for racial profiling. You're going to shut me down? The clerk asked, now visibly sweating. She raised an eyebrow. No, you did that. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted, That's right. Another person clapped. Not loud, not long. Just one clap. Then another. Then a few more. It wasn't applause. It was support. Affirmation. Recognition that a wrong had been named, and that it wasn't going to be buried under police reports and edited footage this time. I stood there in the middle of it all, too stunned to speak. My limbs didn't know what to do, hold gratitude or anger. My heart felt split between shame and disbelief. The mayor looked back at me one last time. You have a story, Damian, and I want people to hear it from you, not from some mangled police report or shaky cell phone footage. I nodded, throat tight. Then she walked away, aides scrambling behind her, reporters trailing, cameras still rolling. But for the first time that morning, I didn't feel like the subject of a scandal. I felt seen. The officers lingered awkwardly, then slowly moved back toward their car. The handcuffs, long forgotten, dangled from one of their belts like a reminder of how fast things had spiraled. I picked up my backpack, my books, and, carefully, my folded scholarship letter from the pavement. It had a footprint on it now, dirty, creased, but somehow even more real. My hands shook as I tucked it back into my pocket. The soda was gone, the bottle shattered. But my voice? It was only just beginning to rise. The mayor's departure didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the starting bell in a boxing match I never trained for. The tension didn't evaporate, it shifted, mutated, turned electric. As soon as her SUV pulled away, the media pounced. Microphones were thrust toward my face like weapons disguised in velvet. Damian, what was going through your mind when they cuffed you? Do you believe this was racially motivated? Is it true you're going to Stanford? I couldn't speak. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. My brain was flooded. I could still feel the cold press of the cuffs, the sting of humiliation, the invisible label branded on me the second I walked through that store door. Criminal, suspect, threat. One woman, standing on the edge of the crowd, called out, You want me to bring your mom, baby? She wasn't my neighbor. I didn't know her name. But her voice had the kind of warmth that cracked through my fog. I nodded, blinking hard. Yeah, I croaked. Please. She's probably wondering where I am. Minutes passed like hours. A local pastor arrived, shaking his head in disbelief. A few more reporters trickled in, including someone from a national outlet. I caught snatches of their questions to the crowd. Did anyone see what actually happened? Did he look aggressive at all? What was the store owner's exact language? Some of the people who'd watched it all started to speak. Their voices rose, timid at first, then bolder. He didn't do nothing. I was inside. He never left the fridge section. I saw the clerk call the cops before the kid even touched the register. I stood there, shoulders drawn, clutching my backpack like a lifeline. And then, like a vision through heat waves, my mom came running. She wasn't dressed for cameras. Her hair was pinned back in the same tight bun she wore to clean houses, her shirt still dusted with bleach stains and fatigue. But to me, she looked like the fiercest woman in Oakland. She didn't stop to ask what happened. She didn't scan the crowd for answers. She went straight for me, took my face in her hands, and kissed my forehead like I was 5 years old again. Then she turned to the cameras and said, "You all want to know who my son is? He's a scholarship kid, a poet, a volunteer at the youth center. He's never stolen a damn thing in his life. He's the reason I work 3 jobs. And this morning, he went out to buy me a soda." Her voice didn't crack. Mine did. "Mom, She hugged me tight. "I know, mijo, I know." The moment settled into something sacred. The crowd fell quiet. Reporters lowered their cameras. Even the officers, still standing off to the side, uncomfortable in their own silence, looked like they wanted to vanish. That's when the mayor came back. She didn't announce her return. She didn't roll in with sirens or camera flashes. She walked. No entourage this time. Just her and a stack of manila folders in her arms. "I forgot something," she said simply, and handed me one of the folders. It had my name on it, typed in bold, Damian Rio's Oakland Youth Voices Initiative. "What's this?" I asked, carefully opening the tab. Inside was a packet of papers, city logos, press contacts, even a speaking schedule. "You're going to be our keynote speaker at the city's Youth Justice Conference next month," she said. My mouth dropped. "But I'm not a speaker." "Yes," she said. "You are. You just haven't been given a stage yet." The world tilted a little. I held the folder like it was something breakable. My mom leaned in, her hands trembling as she touched the edge of the packet. "This is real?" she asked. The mayor smiled. As real as his voice. It should have been too much. The cuffs, the crowd, the camera lights still rolling. But something shifted in me in that moment. A switch flipped. I straightened my shoulders. The clerk, who had retreated back behind the glass door of the store, was now peeking out like he was the victim. I locked eyes with him through the window. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His silence screamed shame. A local reporter took that cue and pushed closer. "Damian, would you like to say anything to the store owner?" All eyes turned to me. My heart thundered. And for the first time since everything started, I didn't shrink. "I don't need an apology," I said. Because apologies don't erase fear. Apologies don't erase the moment I thought I might not make it home today. What I need is change. The crowd leaned in. I want every store owner who looks at a kid like me and sees a threat to ask themselves why. Why they see my skin as suspicion. Why they see my hoodie as dangerous. Why they see my silence as guilt. People murmured. Some clapped. Others wiped their eyes. "I came here to buy a soda," I said. But I walked out with the truth about how this city sees kids like me. And now that I've seen it, I won't unsee it. You don't get to erase this. We remember, we record, we rise. The moment hung in the air like smoke from a fire still burning. The mayor nodded. "You just wrote your opening speech." That afternoon, the story exploded. Every local news station covered it. The headline was everywhere. "Oakland teen cuffed over soda. Mayor intervenes, turns incident into justice campaign." Clips of my mom's speech aired across the country. The footage of me being cuffed, silent and terrified, was played side by side with a photo of me holding my Stanford acceptance letter. The contrast was jarring, viral. But the next wave was even more powerful. Messages poured in from across the nation. Teachers, activists, teens like me. "I've been there. I know that fear. You're speaking for all of us." And suddenly I wasn't just a kid with a story. I was a mirror, a call, a crack in something bigger than me. And people were listening. The next morning, my name was everywhere. I woke up to buzzing. My phone lit up like it had caught fire overnight. Texts, emails, missed calls, notifications so long they ran off the screen. My mom stood in the doorway of my room, holding her coffee with both hands like she needed something warm to anchor her. "I think you're famous," she said. I rolled out of bed, rubbed my eyes, and turned on the TV. There I was, my face frozen mid sentence, a still from the video clip where I spoke outside the store. Beneath it, the caption read, Damian Rios, from accused to advocate. I stared at the screen like it belonged to someone else. But it didn't. It was me. My voice, my pain, my truth. And it had gone national. They were calling me the voice of Oakland's youth. A few papers called me the boy who broke the silence. Others were more dramatic. Scholar in cuffs becomes civil rights catalyst. But no matter how they spun it, the story was the same. A black teen wrongly accused, a mayor who stepped in, and a city forced to look at itself in the mirror. And suddenly, people who'd never even glanced my way were looking. The principal from my high school emailed me directly. "Proud doesn't begin to cover it. Let us know when we can host your speech at the next assembly." A local nonprofit that supports youth mentorship programs offered me a seat on their board. Stanford? They called. Not just to reaffirm my scholarship, but to offer me a feature in their alumni magazine before I'd even taken my first class. But with the attention came something else, something colder. Hate mail, social media trolls, comments that sliced in a different way. Should have just paid and left? Another race-baiting story for the woke crowd. Bet he staged the whole thing for clout. It didn't matter that the store's security footage had been reviewed and verified. It didn't matter that eyewitnesses confirmed I never even made it to the register. To some people, my skin was still louder than any facts. My mom, ever the realist, warned me. Some people will always need to see you as dangerous. It makes their world easier to explain. Still, I wasn't alone. Oakland showed up. The Sunday after the incident, a crowd gathered outside the same store. Hundreds strong. They carried signs with my name. Signs that read, "I am Damian. Cuffs won't silence us. Youth deserve safety too." The store remained closed. Paper covered the windows. A City of Oakland notice was taped to the glass. Business operations suspended pending investigation. But the movement had already moved beyond that block. Community leaders started organizing listening sessions across the city. Kids my age were invited to speak, to share their stories, their fears, the subtle ways they felt invisible until suddenly they were a problem. I was invited to the first one, held at a local church in East Oakland. I stood in front of rows of folding chairs, most of them filled with black and brown families who looked like mine. Some of the kids clutched their parents' hands. Others just stared at me like I was something between a cautionary tale and a miracle. I didn't use notes. I didn't need them. I didn't ask to become a headline. I began. But I'm not letting someone else write the ending. Silence. Then applause. A grandmother in the front row stood up, tears in her eyes. "I've lived here 60 years. I've seen too many boys just like you locked up for less. You speak for the ones who never made it." After the event, a man approached me with his teenage son. He was afraid to walk home in his hoodie. The father said, "He watched your video. Now he wears it like armor." That stuck with me. Later that week, I sat down with Mayor Warren again. This time in her office, glass walls, city skyline behind her, awards and portraits and thick books lining every shelf. She didn't speak at first. She just slid a folder across the desk. "This is what your story started," she said. Inside the folder was a drafted ordinance. The Rios Protocol, a citywide policy aimed at addressing racial profiling in small businesses, mandating bias training, security footage review requirements, and a community oversight board. And it bore my name. My jaw dropped. "This is real?" She nodded. "It's being introduced next session. I am just a student." She smiled. "No, you're a storm. And Oakland needed one." The ordinance made the front page of the Oakland Tribune the next day. Editorials praised it. Some business owners pushed back. Others called it a necessary reckoning. Meanwhile, the store that had called the police on me officially shut down. Not just suspended, closed. The owner issued a statement. But it was too little, too late. He blamed misunderstandings, high crime, stress. Never once did he say the words racial bias. Never once did he say I was wrong. And honestly, I didn't need him to. The community's response was justice louder than any courtroom. Everywhere I went, people stopped me. In the park, at the bus stop, in line at the corner deli. You're Damian, right? They didn't say from the news. They didn't say the boy who got arrested. They just said my name like it mattered. And it did. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt like it wasn't just my name being remembered. It was every name like mine that came before. Every kid cuffed before being questioned. Every hoodie mistaken for a red flag. Every ambition overlooked because it came in a body someone had been taught to fear. I wasn't famous. I was visible. And in Oakland, that visibility was revolutionary. 2 weeks later, the city held a press conference on the steps of City Hall. The sun glared down on the marble, and the microphones glistened like spotlights trained on something more than just policy. It felt like a ceremony, an unveiling, a reckoning, a beginning, stitched from the fabric of something old finally being unraveled. Mayor Warren stood behind the podium first. She spoke clearly, firmly, without notes. She talked about patterns, about systems too long protected by silence. Then she turned toward me, smiling. And now, she said, I'd like to invite Damian Rios, scholar, activist, and the reason we're gathered here today, to speak. I stepped forward. My knees should have buckled, my voice should have cracked. But when I looked out at the crowd, students, teachers, journalists, old neighbors I hadn't seen since I was 10, I didn't feel fear. I felt weight. But not the kind that crushed. The kind you carry when you know you're not alone. 2 weeks ago, I said, I walked into a corner store to buy a soda. I walked out handcuffed. Not because I stole anything, but because I looked like someone who might. A hush settled. Phones pointed. The air tightened. That moment changed everything for me. But more importantly, it uncovered something many of us already knew. That justice doesn't always come with a gavel or a badge. Sometimes it comes in the form of a crowd refusing to look away. A mayor stepping into the fire. A city choosing to listen. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the letter. My Stanford letter. This time, not crumpled or stepped on, but pressed neatly in a folder, protected. This is where I'm going next, but I'm not leaving this behind. I held it up, not for show, but for memory, for power, for truth. I'll be the first in my family to attend college, but I refuse to be the last who believes he deserves dignity. The applause was slow at first, then swelled like waves. I saw my mom crying behind her sunglasses. I saw a kid in the front row holding a homemade sign that read, Damian taught me to speak up. And then the mayor handed me a plaque. It read, City of Oakland Youth Leadership Award. Damian Rios, for courage in the face of injustice and commitment to a better tomorrow. I held it like it weighed 100 pounds. Because it did. After the event, I stayed behind as people filtered out. An aide from the mayor's office approached and told me the Rios protocol had passed in committee. Unanimous vote. It would go to the full city council the following week. That night I got a call. It was from someone I didn't expect, the store clerk. I didn't answer at first. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the red decline button. But something inside me, it wasn't forgiveness exactly, but something adjacent, told me to pick up. His voice was different, stripped of arrogance, measured, almost too careful. I wanted to say, I watched the footage again, he said. Silence. I see it now. I didn't before, but I saw what I looked like. I saw how fast I jumped to conclusions, how fast I dialed, and I saw your face when they cuffed you. I've been thinking about it ever since. I didn't say anything, he kept going. I'm closing the store for good, he said. It's not just the city, it's me. I built that place thinking I was doing good for the neighborhood, but I see now I never saw the neighborhood. Not really. Again, I didn't speak. I'm going back to school, he said finally. Studying criminal justice. I want to understand the systems I didn't question for too long. And I wanted you to know, I'm sorry. Not just for what I did to you, but for every time I didn't see the truth. I sat there on the edge of my bed, heart full of contradictions. I didn't trust him, but I also didn't hate him. And maybe that was enough. The real twist came a week later. I was at the youth center where I volunteered on weekends, helping a group of kids write personal essays. One of the younger boys, Marcus, always half lost in his own daydreams, pulled me aside. I wrote about you for my school project, he said. They asked who our hero was. I picked you. I smiled, ruffled his hair, and told him that made my week. But he shook his head, serious. No, you don't get it. I used to think I was gonna end up in jail. Or worse, cause that's what happens to boys like me, right? But now I think maybe I'll go to college too. That's when it hit me. The system hadn't changed overnight. Cops still profiled, stores still judged. But something had shifted. In Marcus. In the people who marched, in the mayor who listened, in the council that voted. In me. And maybe the most poetic justice of all wasn't the plaque or the policy or the headlines. Maybe it was that a kid like me, once seen as a threat for holding a soda, was now someone others looked to for direction. Not because I was exceptional, but because I was visible. That's the thing they never tell you about justice. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it starts with broken glass and ends with someone else standing taller because you dared to speak. And if that's not a twist, then I don't know what is. The city never went back to normal. Not really. And maybe that's a good thing. 2 months after the day everything changed, I sat alone at Lake Merritt, watching the sunlight bounce off the water in ripples, soft and gold. I'd been doing that a lot lately, sitting, breathing, letting the silence speak louder than the noise that had followed me since that morning outside the corner store. People still stopped me in the streets, still whispered my name in grocery lines, offered thanks in coffee shops, asked if I had time for just one quick interview. And I'd smile, nod, even oblige sometimes. But deep down, I wasn't trying to be anyone's hero. I was just trying to understand who I had become. Before that day, I was just Damian Rios, son of Maria, scholarship kid with big plans and a quiet streak. I wasn't looking for the spotlight. I wasn't angry at the world. I just wanted a shot at something better, something softer than the world we'd been given. But when you're born into a body, people are taught to fear. Your silence is mistaken for guilt. Your hoodie becomes a uniform. And your ambition is invisible until it's weaponized in your defense. That morning, I walked into a store carrying hope in my back pocket and left carrying history on my shoulders. I didn't choose that moment, but I chose what came after. And that's what I think about most now, the after. The truth is, nothing about me changed that day. I didn't suddenly become wise, or brave, or worthy. What changed was the world's willingness to listen. And I've learned that when the world finally opens its ears, you can either whisper or roar. I chose to roar, but even roars have echoes. And I felt everyone. I felt it when the city council passed the Rios protocol into law, and I stood beside Mayor Warren as she signed the ordinance with a pen. She said she'd been saving for something that mattered. I felt it when a 7th grade English teacher from Texas emailed to say her entire class was reading my story in a media literacy unit, and half the students had written their own essays about bias they'd experienced. I felt it when my mom, sitting at the edge of her bed folding laundry, paused and said, "You know, for the first time in my life, I don't feel invisible. You gave that to me." But the echo I feel most is quieter. It's the echo of knowing I changed. Not into someone new, but into someone awake. I don't see the world the same anymore. I see every corner store as a test, every uniform as a question mark, every stare as a possible verdict. But I also see every young face in the crowd as a flame, every shared story as a match, every voice raised as a reminder that we are not powerless. We never were. I started volunteering weekly at the youth center, not just for the kids, but for me. To remember where I come from. To remember that before I was a headline, I was just a boy walking down the street, trying to do something good. The first time I told my story in a classroom, I stumbled. My voice caught halfway through. My hands shook. But after class, a student pulled me aside. Shy, no eye contact, quiet voice, and said, "That happened to my brother." But no one believed him, until now. That's when I knew. Telling the story wasn't about reliving my trauma. It was about making space for truth, for memory, for healing. Not just for me, but for all of us. Because this wasn't just my story. It's the story of every black kid who's been followed in a store. Every Latino teen who's been stopped without reason. Every name that trended for a week after a tragedy, then disappeared into hashtags and broken families. It's the story of America's unfinished work. But it's also the story of resistance, of mothers who fight for sons the world tries to erase, of city leaders who choose courage over comfort, of bystanders who become witnesses, witnesses who become voices, voices who become change. People keep asking me if I've forgiven the store owner. I tell them this: forgiveness isn't a gift you hand over like a receipt. It's a process, a rebuilding. And it's not for the person who broke you, it's for the part of yourself you want to salvage. So maybe I haven't fully forgiven him, but I've forgiven me for the shame I carried in those moments, for believing, even for a second, that I deserved it, for almost letting fear silence me. I walk differently now, not with swagger, not with bitterness, but with purpose. I still wear my hoodie, not out of defiance, but because it's mine. My comfort, my armor, my reminder that the things they fear can also be the things that liberate us. This fall, I'll be walking into my first class at Stanford. I'll carry books, I'll carry ambition, and I'll carry every name that never made it this far. To the people watching this, wondering why this story matters, wondering if they should care about one more incident in a long list of injustices, I say this. You don't need to be cuffed to be trapped. You don't need to be attacked to be scarred. And you don't need to be famous to be powerful. We all carry stories inside us, but they only matter if we tell them. So tell yours, and if the world doesn't want to hear it, shout louder. We're listening now. If my story moved you, if it reminded you of something you've seen, something you've lived, something you've lost, don't let it end here. Comment, share, speak, not for me. For the kid standing in your neighborhood right now, holding a soda, wondering if today is the day the world will see him as something more than a threat. Be the reason the answer is yes. Like, subscribe. But more importantly, remember,